The following is a paid advertisement. The views expressed are the sole responsibility of the advertiser.
Put the power back in your hands. This is Behind the Law with attorney Justin Clark.
Welcome to Behind the Law. If you have any questions whatsoever during the program, I will leave the phone number on the screen, 321-282-1055. We are here to answer them. As always, my beautiful co-host, Makaila Nichols, is here. Hello, Makaila. How are you?
Great.
You are here to answer the questions of the people at home. You're a non-lawyer. I'm a lawyer. Obviously, we're going to have different types of questions. That's what you're here for, and you're so good at it. Are you ready?
I mean, yeah, duh.
First of all, allow me to say I sure hope that you and yours had an okay storm. It was pretty rough around here, obviously, but I hope nothing happened to you. Nothing bad, that is. Thanks to all the police officers, firefighters out there rescuing people, and those linemen, Makaila. Right, thank you guys. We love seeing them. It always brings us together. Here's what we're going to do today. You're charged with a crime. You hire a lawyer. Should you be honest with your lawyer about what you actually did or did not do? Also, family law. What do you do about time sharing during a hurricane? You ready?
I am.
Let's do it. Here's what we'll do. A very short break. When we return, Behind the Law will continue.
Managing your investment property is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Sign up at GoRent123.com. 2. Let Greater Orlando Realty handle everything for you when it comes to managing your property. From qualifying tenants to collecting rent, processing maintenance requests, and everything in between. 3. Sit back, relax, and count all that money you're making. Earning passive income on your property is as easy as 1, 2, 3 with Greater Orlando Realty. Visit GoRent123.com today.
Welcome back to the show. I had a lot of people come up to me recently during the storm and ask how I have little Johnny on Wednesdays and yet now she won't give me Johnny back because of the storm. Time sharing. That's a word that you hear a lot when it comes to family law. Time sharing of the children. What do you do with time sharing when you have a hurricane or an emergency like we had around here last week? Who better to ask than Erin Morse, family law attorney. Erin, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Hey, I'm great. How are you?
Fantastic. So how does that work? Because when you have a time sharing plan, obviously mom gets kids some days, dad gets kids other days. Yet, let's say they're at mom's house, supposed to go back to dad's on Wednesday, yet we have a hurricane rolling through and mom's like, I'm not bringing them. How does that work?
So if it's safe to travel, some places never lost power. I never lost power, but some places it wasn't safe to travel. My mom's house is flooded. That's really going to be a bit of more of your determining factor is it safe and could you comply? Because the risk that you run by not complying with your court order is contempt. Right, which you could go to jail, you could be ordered to pay attorney's fees or something like that. But if you were unable to comply with that court order, you wouldn't have to. So it's really going to be a matter of figuring out what's safe or what would work. But if you think that the children should stay with you because you're just the better parent, they're going to come for you for that.
Is that right? How loose? Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was just commenting.
How loose are these rules? So let's say I do get the kids every other weekend, and then one weekend the mom says, you know what, I'm just going to keep them this weekend. Can mom get in trouble in that situation, or is it like, okay, once or twice it's okay?
No, she could get in trouble just the one weekend keeping the children if the two parties don't agree. Now, if the two of you would have agreed to something like that, that's outside of your parenting plan, that's fine. So if you agree to it, it's okay. If you don't agree, that's contempt. That's where you'll have sanctions and fees. But it's not contempt if you don't take them to court and enforce it.
Believe it or not, we're almost upon the holiday season. It's the year's gone by quickly.
Fun.
How does it work with traveling? Let's say that I want to go to Tennessee and visit my family, and I want to take the kids out of state. What are the rules when it comes to traveling with children?
So if you have a final judgment, it's going to be in there, whether you can travel outside of the state with the children. Generally, yes, you can travel outside of the state with your children as long as you inform the other parent of where you're going, and it's not going to impact the other parent's time sharing. So those are your general guidelines. But if you want to travel, it's most likely that during your time sharing, you could travel.
Unfortunately, we've got, 50% of marriages end in divorce still? Is it 50%, right? I mean, 50%. And when that divorce happens, especially if you have children, you do not want to go to this courtroom on your own. You need to have a family law attorney like Erin by your side. If you have questions for Erin right now, she will answer them literally right now. 321-282 1055. And what about attorney's fees too? So you hear all these stories on TMZ.com or whatever. Not that I ever go to that website, of course.
Me either.
But good.
Never watch them on TV all the time.
You hear the stories about someone famous. They had to pay $100,000 in attorney's fees for the ex-wife's attorney. How do we determine who pays the attorney's fees in these divorce cases?
So every state's obviously going to be different, and California has their law. So if you're talking about a celebrity divorce, that's probably where it was happening, was in California. But in Florida, attorney's fees are considered similarly to support. So if one party has the need and the other party has the greater ability to pay, you can seek attorney's fees. You can also seek attorney's fees under a theory of sanctions for contempt, like we were discussing earlier.
So
what if you're not married? Does the other person have to pay for the attorney fee?
You don't have to pay for it's not automatic, right? You file a case and immediately they write the check to the other attorney. You'd have to go to court and, prove it up or have an agreement.
Got it.
But you could have a good claim. And if you're not married and it's a paternity action, the same rule under a different statute, they kind of speak to each other and recite themselves. But under the paternity statute, the need and ability analysis or the need for attorney's fees seen as support is something that exists there in paternity too.
Got it.
Family law cases are obviously very emotionally charged, and I think there are times where you probably have clients who are paying enough as is, yet the ex-wife or the ex-husband comes in and files something asking for more that just is nonsense, and no judge is ever going to award that. Right. How do attorney's fees work in that situation if a judge says, there's no way you're ever going to get this anyway? Will they look at that and when it comes to awarding attorney's fees?
So not quite that simply. Okay. You'd really have to go through a sanctions if it was truly not a meritorious claim. Yeah. But merely winning on a motion to dismiss doesn't entitle you to attorney's fees.
I see.
Even if I think it should.
We don't have debtor's prison, obviously, in this country, thanks to the Boston Tea Party and throwing the tea into the Boston Harbor, thankfully. Yeah. We don't have debtor's prison. Right. However, I have seen times, I know you have recently, where maybe someone was ordered by the judge to pay a certain fee, they don't do it, and end up in jail. How can that happen?
So we were telling the story earlier. A former husband was ordered to pay alimony. He didn't pay alimony for a number of years, so that can go on, and until you enforce it, you don't get that money. So through this enforcement procedure, which was multiple hearings, I won, and he started to pay his alimony and had to pay my attorney's fees for that cause of action. So that's a good example of when your attorney's fees would get paid by the other party. Well, he wasn't paying them. So I went to court, and part of the analysis on if you'll be held in contempt is if you had the ability to pay. He started mouthing off.
Always a great idea in the courtroom.
Yeah, that's right. You should mouth off to the judge. Deputies there jingling the, he was just like, ching, ching,
ready to go.
And he said he can't pay, he wasn't gonna pay, so the judge looks at him and goes, you have a banking app on your phone? Because I had already received the right to look at his banking app to know if he has the ability to pay. And he goes, unlock your phone, unlock your banking app, and hand me your phone.
Yikes.
So the deputy takes the phone to the judge, and the judge is there for a few minutes scrolling. I could feel him sweating, right? He's on the other side, but I could feel him sweating. So the judge goes, I'm finding that you have the ability to pay. You have the present ability to pay. Attorney Morse, open your payment portal, right, to take a credit card. He won't do it. He stands up and he's like, I'm never gonna pay, you're gonna put me in jail, I'll never pay, I'll be in jail forever, right? He did not wanna pay me, he dislikes me a lot. So the judge goes, okay, well, we'll take you to jail. I swear the exchange happened 7 times. Are you gonna pay? You could pay, you could not go to jail, I'm gonna put you in jail. And he said he wasn't gonna pay. In jail he went.
Right there.
Right there, right there, from the courtroom, drop your stuff, you gotta go. So then 3 days later, he pays and he's let out of jail. So
I imagine your client's going to leave you a positive review on that case, I hope, on Google, huh?
Yeah, right?
That's a very happy client, I'm sure.
That's right, that's right.
I've heard so many stories about angry ex-spouses who were, okay, I will give you the 10 grand, and they go to the bank and get it all in pennies. Have you ever seen that happen?
I have
and can
not.
You do that?
Yes,
no?
It's not illegal, right?
Right?
In general, we try to avoid that. This is why even if you think you can agree to something, you really do want an attorney, and you specify the form and method of payment by cashier's check, by direct transfer. We typically don't put cash to avoid that kind of storyline of dude paying his child support in the wheelbarrow full of pennies, right? We don't want that guy.
Absolutely.
So I like the cashier's check, direct transfer, or through the disbursement unit directly from their check if it's support.
You know, again, very emotionally charged area of law, family law, and you hear a lot about leverage and threats, and I'm going to turn you into the IRS, or I'm going to throw myself against the wall and pretend like you hit me. Happens all the time in family law.
It does.
How do we go through that process and ensure that doesn't happen?
Well, I haven't seen very frequently where this reporting to the IRS or something like that happens and it's successful. I think because as soon as the IRS or someone knows that you're in the middle of a divorce, what they do is they're like, right, okay, I don't even want to listen to this, right? My husband is, you know, because also, are you also complicit? If you signed those IRS papers and he was breaking the law in the IRS, did you just report yourself? So, you know, consider the blowback if you're the person who wants to behave that way. But to protect yourself from it, of course, we have the legal system. And, you know, the domestic violence issues, they really can come about. We saw everything that happened with Johnny Depp and how that unfolds and continues to unfold. Somehow it's not over. I don't know.
Why do we become so childish when it comes to divorce? It's crazy, isn't it?
I don't know. And if I had that answer, I think I could be like president of the world.
Yeah, you probably could.
I think I would be like how I become president.
I know you represent both men and women. You don't focus on either.
No.
You're doing a great job.
Yeah,
Everyone that I ever talked to that has hired you is always very happy. So
well, I appreciate
you're doing
that.
something right, that's for sure.
We're trying.
Erin
right?
Morse, if you have any questions about family law, your children, how much do I have to pay for child support? I would give Erin a call right now, 321-282-1055. When we come back, I think this is a very interesting question that a lot of people do not know the answer to. You've been charged with a crime. You go down, you go through the phone book, you go on Google, and you hire a criminal defense attorney. You go to their office, and they say, okay, what's up? Do you tell them the truth? Or do you not tell them the truth? It's a very interesting question that we're going to answer after this quick break as Behind the Law continues. Here we are with personal injury attorney Michael Mills. But Michael, you're way more than an attorney. You've been able to bridge the gap between doctor, lawyer, and consumer with your Injury Assistance Network, or IAN as it's known. Tell me about it.
Well, what it is basically it's a online personal injury network of providers, both medical and service, and it just helps personal injury attorneys and the general public find quality healthcare providers and service providers to take care of them when they've been injured in an accident.
Because the medical part of it is a huge piece in getting these clients recovered. You're a great personal injury attorney, though, as well. A lot of advertisement for PI guys out there. What separates you?
22 years.
Yeah.
My first 6 years, I did work for the insurance companies. I worked at one of the largest insurance defense firms in Florida. And then for the last 16 years, I've been representing the actual injured victims, as well as some of the providers as well, doing PIP work. Okay. So I'm able to take that, what I learned, and bring it to the plaintiff side. Excellent,
man. Keep up the wonderful work. And whether you're a doctor, whether you're a lawyer, or a consumer who's been injured in an accident, call Michael Mills today. He's over on the good guy side, I would say, right?
Yes, absolutely.
What side did you like better?
This side, definitely.
Yeah.
I've come to the light.
Exactly. I'm glad you did. Michael Mills, the Injury Assistance Law Firm. Give him a call today if you've been injured in an accident. But again, if you're a doctor or a lawyer, you need help finding help in that regard, call Michael Mills. Does credit card debt have you spinning out of control? You are not helpless. At Attorneys Justin Clark and Associates, our goal is to lower or even eliminate your credit card debt. Call me today or visit youhavepower.com and take back control of your financial life. Is student loan debt holding you back? I'm Attorney Justin Clark. You may have the power to lower or even eliminate the payments that have you living paycheck to paycheck. Call me now for a free consultation or visit youhavepower.com and take back control of your life. Welcome back, and genuinely, I do not know the answer to this question. I'm a lawyer, but I'm not a criminal lawyer. Here's the question, and I think it's a very important question. You get charged with a crime, you go down to Main Street, you meet with your criminal defense attorney, and you sit down in the chair, and he says, okay, tell me what happened. Do you tell your criminal defense attorney the truth? Like, you actually did it, okay? Like, a lot of us, we did it, we know we did it, but do you tell your lawyer that you did it? James Smith does know everything about criminal law. James, welcome to the show, buddy. How you been?
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Enjoyed the work you guys do.
Of course. So you have a client comes into the office, been charged with a crime. You say, well, what happened? Do I tell you the truth? What do I tell you?
So I think defense attorneys fall into two camps. There are some defense attorneys who say they never want a client to tell them what happened. And the reason being is that as lawyers, you know, we're bound by certain ethical rules. So if you have a client who comes in and says, hey, I actually did commit the crime, that limits certain things that you can do if you take your case to trial. There's another camp of lawyers, and this is the camp that I fall into. I never try to, in the first meeting, say, hey, tell me what happened. And there are a number of reasons for that. First and foremost, there may be a case that you can win, but if the client tells you, hey, I did it, then you're limited in terms of what you can say or do at trial. Another reason is, I think if you're trying to establish a really good relationship with your client, the last thing you want to do is act like the police or the investigators. Generally, they've already been questioned by someone about what happened, if they were arrested by the police or contacted by investigators. So you don't necessarily want to go in and then talk to them. I got my start as a lawyer in the Army, and the best lawyer that I ever encountered, she always said, I never ask the client what happened. What I do is I take a look at the evidence and I see if I can beat the case. If the client wants to talk to me, then I'll let him do so, but I generally don't ask them.
So let's say that I'm the defendant. I'm the one that's been charged with a crime. I sit in your office. What should I tell you?
Well, I think first and foremost, you want to make sure that you tell your lawyer certain important things. Do you have any mental health issues? Okay. More often than not, I find that a lot of clients may have trouble telling you what took place because, let's say, for example, it's a crime like a crime of domestic violence or maybe a crime involving drugs or alcohol. They're going to have a hard time telling you what actually happened. You know, one of the things I learned early on is this idea that memory is an interpretation, it's not a record. And so any lawyer who just relies upon what the client says, you're getting an incomplete version of events. I guess I would say it's this. If clients decide that they are going to tell the lawyer what happened, make sure you tell the truth. The last thing you want to do is give your lawyer a false story. It's the old phrase, what? Garbage in, garbage out.
That's right. Let's say I'm a 19-year-old young adult and my mom is very involved in my life. She's the one that's going to pay for you to be my criminal defense attorney. Should I bring my mom in the room with me?
Well, I can tell you that very few things that are more difficult as a criminal defense attorney than dealing with family members.
Yeah.
Okay? Because they're the ones who pay, and so they think, well, hey, if I gave you the check, I'm the client. One thing, and I'm sure you know this, attorney-client privilege generally only extends to the client and other parties who are necessary for the discussion. So the problem is if you bring a mother in, okay, you're going to first and foremost have the mother-child dynamics. You know, talked about a 19-year-old, had a case not too long ago involving a 19-year-old accused of some improper acts relating to sexuality. Well, mother, she's the one who makes the payment and she wants to sit in on the meeting. And I told her, look, I need to talk to your son first. If there's one thing that's true in this world, teenage boys don't like to talk about sex in front of their mothers.
I know that. 43-year-old boys don't want to talk about sex in front of their mothers.
Right. So I generally try to avoid that. I mean, obviously you want to keep the family members informed, but as far as having them involved in the day-to-day intimate conversations, that's not a good idea because you could end up breaking the privilege, and smart prosecutors might find out that they're in these meetings and then call them as witnesses.
And what I do know is if you are charged with a crime or even you're being investigated for a crime, I mean, if you can afford a criminal defense attorney, you need to do so. You should call James Smith right now, 321-282-1055. Look, we love our public defenders. We really do. However, they overwhelm them. I'm not saying anything bad about the public defender's office. They do the best they can. It's just they have a lot of cases. When you hire a private criminal defense attorney, in my opinion, you're better suited to fight these charges. Now, James, earlier in the program, we were talking about divorce and divorce being so emotional, and I can't tell you how many times in my office a husband or wife have come in and said that I had to sign over the house to her because she said she was going to throw herself against the wall. Literally, this just happened on Saturday with a client. And this happens a lot. You deal with a lot of domestic violence cases. Obviously, we don't condone domestic violence here on this program. But you know as well as I do that there are instances of fake domestic violence. How do we root that out?
Well, I think the way that we root it out is by making sure that when criminal defense attorneys have an opportunity to come on a forum like this, to remind people, don't believe what you see in the press. All right, we've had stories recently, think for example, with Ricky Martin or other celebrities where they were accused of acts of intra-family violence or domestic violence, and then you find out later on that it was a money grab or a power grab. One thing that I know for certain is that what you see in the press gets filtered through so many things. A desire for ratings, a desire for attention, and also who's the source of the information.
Sure.
I can't tell you how many times I've had mothers and fathers going through divorces, and then suddenly someone on the other side accuses them of child molestation or domestic violence. And the reason they do that is because they know that we have a tabloid society now that's inclined to believe the charge. And I think one way that we could root it out is this. Once the accusation is made, there should be some sort of rule, some sort of self-regulating impulse in the media to have the ultimate retraction have just as much prominence as the accusation.
Right.
Think about it. When people are charged with things, it makes page one and everyone reads about it. But then when you find out 5 or 6 months later on that nothing was done, no one pays attention to it. And I think that goes really to the ethics of the press. You know, Michael Irvin one time, he was accused of a crime of sexual assault. A few weeks later, he was cleared of it. And I remember there's a very famous video where he said, keep the intensity. When this charge came out, you had it on page one, it was in bold, you ran so many stories about it, but when it was retracted, you said nothing. So I think it's really more so the press regulating itself.
It's really a beautiful point, absolutely. What about this? So let's say that someone is falsely accused of domestic violence. Then it comes out in court later that I was lying, he really didn't do that. Do you ever see charges filed against the person who falsely accused the other?
Absolutely. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, I read a great article in the New Yorker magazine, which talks about how in some jurisdictions, prosecutors are now prosecuting people who've made false rape allegations.
Good.
And there are actually statutes in the books in a lot of places where people can be charged for making these false accusations. So it doesn't happen often, but there are mechanisms there to do that.
Some people, I think, in the general public will think that you are a bad person for being a criminal defense attorney. You're out there defending criminals. I know you're not a bad person. What got you into this area of law?
I can't tell you how many times I've been at a party and there are other lawyers there, and so there's the personal injury lawyer, and people say, oh, what type of law you do? PI. Oh, you must make a lot of money. If it's the corporate lawyer, oh, you're smart. You must be smart because you're a corporate lawyer. Well, what type of law do you do, James? I do criminal defense. Then they look at the partner and they go, oh. And they walk away and they come back and they say, how can you represent those people? And I guess my response is, think of it this way. If your son's falsely accused, or your daughter's falsely accused, or you would want the best criminal defense attorney out there. So just remember, you're just one traffic stop away, one bad relationship away from being those people. And so that's usually the response that I give. And then, afterwards they're, well, you know what? It's a good point. Let me get that card in case I need you. Not for myself.
Yeah, of course.
But maybe for a friend.
That's a beautiful point. Hey, your history, I did not know you were in the Army before. How did you get to this point? Tell me about your career a little bit.
So, shout out to my father. Proud veteran, served in the Vietnam War, and career military officer, and so it was just an understanding that I was going to do that. Army paid for me to go to college, a great place called Hampton University. Shout out Hampton Pirates. And then after that, I asked for something called an educational delay, and got a chance to go to law school, and then I joined the JAG Corps. So I always joke with my kids that the movie A Few Good Men was based on me.
That's
I'm
right.
just darker and a bit taller.
Absolutely. And then did you work for the state at all, state attorney's office?
So after I got out of the Army, I actually moved here, taught law, FAMU College of Law, did that for a few years. Then I was at the Federal Public Defender's Office, and then started doing private practice since 2014.
Beautiful. And a great job you do. I've known a lot of clients of yours, and they always rave about James.
Well, thank you so much.
Overall, good guy, too.
Well,
it's always fun to hang out with you.
I appreciate
Look forward to
that.
seeing you at the, what is it, Hampton? No, where did we meet last time?
So we met at Hampton Social.
Hampton Social.
That's right, that's right.
And speaking of, and you went to Hampton University.
I went to Hampton University, one of the great historically black colleges in the United States.
And quite honestly, this past Saturday, they looked quite a bit better than the Bulldogs did. Georgia, huh?
Well, hey, I think you guys will have a chance to come back, hopefully.
That was for Philip Deems. James Smith, great job as always. Any criminal issues whatsoever, 321-282-1055. He will literally answer your call right now. Here's what we'll do. A very quick break. When we return, we'll wrap it up with What Did We Learn? Our good buddy Greg Mann is here, a property manager, the best in the business, I assure you. Greg, how are you, sir?
Good. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It scares me a little bit because there are some people still out there who own real estate, who rent it out, and they want to do it themselves. I never advise that whatsoever because, and you've seen it, Greg, people who rent houses out to someone else and decide they want to do self-help evictions, they can get in trouble legally for that.
Yeah, well, first of all, they're not professionals, so they don't know what they're doing. And as you would know better than most people, if you don't know what you're doing and you're not a professional, don't do it. So avoid it. Or if you self-manage and you need to do an eviction, go to an attorney.
Even that aside, though, anyone who owns real estate that they're renting out really should have a property manager such as yourself. What are all the things that you do to make life easier for me, the landlord?
From start to finish, we rent the house out, we collect the rent, we send it to you, we maintain the house. Everything's just one package. It's simple.
It is. And vendors, you know so many vendors. You make life easier for me, the landlord, because you have those connections already.
We do, but we actually really screen our vendors really well. You know, so every vendor that works with us, licensed and insured, and we turn vendors down left, right, and center. But you know, we're always looking for good vendors too.
And wouldn't you say? Some people say, I'm going to rent it myself because I don't want to pay Greg. I don't want to pay a property manager. But wouldn't you say you actually save the landlord money over time because of your relationship with these vendors?
Absolutely, we save money. Not only do we save money with the vendors, we save time, which you can never get back.
And 2 a.m. phone calls, I'm not getting those.
No, you won't. I get those.
Literally, as the property owner, I just buy the property and turn everything over to you and collect checks. I don't have to do anything.
Yeah, it's like winning the lottery every single day.
If you own real, thank you, Greg, as always. We always appreciate your insight. If you own real estate that you're renting out and you're handling it yourself, it's not a good idea. You can get yourself into trouble and it's going to cost you money. Call Greg Mann today. More Behind the Law is just ahead.
Managing your investment property is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Sign up at GoRent123.com. 2. Let Greater Orlando Realty handle everything for you when it comes to managing your property. From qualifying tenants to collecting rent, processing maintenance requests, and everything in between. 3. Sit back, relax, and count all that money you're making. Earning passive income on your property is as easy as 1, 2, 3 with Greater Orlando Realty. Visit GoRent123.com today.
As always, we wrap it up here this morning with what did we learn? Makaila, I thought it was a great show.
It was a great show.
I learned a lot.
Yeah.
What did you learn?
Okay, so I learned that you don't necessarily have to pay for someone's attorney's fees. I think that's huge, and more people should look into that, because why would you pay for someone if you don't have to?
Yeah, I learned that if you have a time-sharing plan and there's an emergency situation, if it's unsafe to drive, you really don't necessarily have to deliver the kids back, but you better be able to prove that it was unsafe.
Yeah. And always tell the truth to your lawyer.
And no, I heard don't tell.
I mean, but like, don't like be like, hey, I'm gonna tell you, but like, if you are, tell them the truth.
What I heard was if you're charged with a crime and you go meet with your attorney and you actually did it, don't say that. That's what I heard. Maybe
I mean, but if you're gonna tell them, like, you should probably say what happened.
I guess. Man, I don't know. I don't agree.
I don't know.
We heard something different here.
Well.
Makaila, great job to you, as always. And a wonderful weekend to you. We'll be back here next week for more Behind the Law.
Free yourself of the stress of investment property management. Visit GoRent123.com today.
The proceeding was a paid advertisement. The views expressed were the sole responsibility of the advertiser.